very, very happy to meet you. Very honored that you came all the way to Bologna to go to school. This also happens to be my hometown. And I've been in the school since the very beginning. I'm very emotionally attached to this university and to the school. And it's always been the biggest pleasure to be here, fascinated by the idea of having an international audience in Bologna. So thank you very much. How is life? How is Bologna treating you?
Well, great.
Great?
Great.
Yeah.
You feel home.
You feel home? Okay, right. Okay, so it's I have I have a pretty large. I think I do have a pretty large menu to you. I can talk about several subjects. I have lived in Asia since 1994 on and off. All over Asia, and I still do live in China. And I came back to China Sunday night. And I was in Milan, and then I arrived last night. Just before I start, because they set me up to this style of presentation about the company that I manage. Well, over the course of the years, I've been doing many things. Together with George and I founded the Observatorio Asia, so we do a lot of reading, writing, discussion, about many aspects that go beyond what we actually do, which is Mandarin Capital, which is this signed European private equity fund. So the question is, what would you like to start with? Because I'm just like, here I have any possible menu. Here, because every time I do an outline, here. So either you want to know something about Mandarin, about what I do, about what I did, about Chinese financial system, when China can go, whatever. I don't know what they've been teaching you, and about what I think about internet, the political situation, the industrial situation, the sustainability of the economic model. I have developed some idea about China and Africa because we're very close to the bank and the fund that we're doing all the financing in Africa. So so before I start, and I take my own thing, I'm wondering if there's something particular you'd like me to touch upon.
For my own interest, the slide you just put is perfect, because I'm really interested in the evolution of the private equity market in China, about the perspectives and what are the main obstacles and problematics that you experienced in your career, merging and acquisition processes.
Ladies go first. And the guy thinks he's gonna jump ahead of the ladies. This is a very bad start. This guy is starting backward. He's starting
You're right.
real drive.
They're minorities, that's why they're right.
They're minority. Okay. Well, I like this gender mix though.
Yes, discriminating.
Eh?
You are discriminating.
You're discriminating, and I do discriminate too. You can just put me in that group.
I have two curiosity, maybe they can come out during your class. One is about the welfare system in China. So I did my thesis for the university. I studied political science and did my thesis dissertation 3 years ago on hukou system and the double standard, the citizenship standard. So I'm wondering, how do you think it's going to evolve the welfare system, in which direction and which way China government will choose? Because like it is right now, it doesn't seem affordable to me. The other curiosity, as I'm Italian, is about the way Italy is approaching Chinese investment. I read a few months ago on Corriere della Sera a little article about our secret services being scared because Chinese are investing too much in Italy. And so I want to kind of know your thought about that. It seems so peculiar to me.
And the investment that they were questioning about, the investment we are making. So I was right in the middle, yeah. These are two very good points. Yes, you have something to say, Julius?
I have also high expectations on, you see, business in China and economics and policies, they are being opened than before. But on the side of politics, in government, the political side, in the normal circumstances, the economic liberalism and market and business and economics, they do give the politicians the direction to go. But here we have the political side that is untouchable as of today since many years. And we don't see it changing, giving power to economics. Soon.
In China?
Yes. So for how long are we going to wait? And this small room and window that is being opened in the economic policy, to me, if the politicians are still controlling, because any day the politician wakes up and even reverses that policy that he had put in place a year ago, which favors this economic or business side. So there's so much political power than economic power and liberalism. To merely do doing business and influencing economic policies that are in line with the businesses where we see the potential to exploit. So how long are we going to wait for the opening up of the political side? Because the two have got to go hand in hand in creating development that is sustainable.
Yeah. Good point.
So
It's very happy to discuss that. It's a hot topic. Yes, Vanessa.
Hi. I always been curious. I know that China has very good relations with Europe and big markets, but I want to know if there are some potential relations with another emerging markets. China in relation with another emerging markets like Brazil, for example. How is the relation right now in that aspect?
Very good question. Okay, if you don't mind, any more questions? And then the question leads to question. The issue about what I'm doing, well, that is of great interest to Andrea. Andrea?
Yes.
I'll talk. First, I would like John to give Andrea a negative mark. You should have studied everything already. already.
Yeah.
You should have waited for me to come along. You should have impressed me with the depth of this. Now, nonetheless, this is, I'm bound to confidentiality, so I'm like, I basically will not spill the beans.
You will have a month to depressing.
Yeah, okay. So, I will touch about the things. I'll touch about the things I'm doing. We have plenty of time today and tomorrow, and I would like to start answering some of these questions because that will give us a possibility. The welfare system. The question about the welfare system. You basically ask two questions in one question. Because one thing is to tell you in detail how the welfare system is set up. And the paramount to that is the question of the so famous HUCO system, by which people are, the system was established in the 50s that linked people to their own residence. And it made basically impossible for people to move. This system is still in place. If you have the UCO in near Chengdu, if you go to Beijing, basically you're not entitled to any benefit. If you happen, your kids cannot go to school in Beijing, and you cannot go to hospital in Beijing. If you get sick in Beijing, you have to go back to your own town, even if it's 3,000 kilometers away. The system was established at the very beginning of the Chinese unification, 1949. It was a way to to get the pressure off the cities and push people to other countries. So basically, the party assigned, push people away. It was too many people assembled in the cities. It was difficult to feed them all. There were slums. Cities were more difficult to control. It was in cities it was more likely to develop unrest. So they basically sent people away, pushed them to the countryside, and anchored them into the countryside. So now you have and the system since the very beginning has privileged the urban centers. Even in the early years of the planned economy, when the farmers were obliged to give a share of the crop to the cities, the system was designed in such a way that the urban resident would have much more to eat than the farmers themselves. So, I mean, the power of the party has always been hinged upon the control of the large city and giving cities, urban dwellers, more privilege than farmers. And the system is in place today. We're talking about like increasing disparity, but the disparity between urban dwellers and farmers has been there all the time. Farmers are very poor. They have very little land. There used to be 700 million farmers, over 100 million hectares of arable land, so it makes about 8 people per hectare, and incredible density. And so a family of 3 would not even have a hectare to live upon. I mean, so it was really minimum. They're starving for land. They have to live off really scraps. Now, the thing is becoming deep now, because with China increasing industrialization, you you now have more than 200 million people, about 230 million people who have to move from the countryside into the cities, have to move away from their original place of residence to work in the factory, mainly factories. So that makes an immigrant population in Chinese cities about 200 million people. So basically, who is left in the countryside? Consider that these are like 200 million people below 30 years of age. So what you have left in the countryside are elder and kids. So you really have a tremendous dual class society, where you have these immigrant workers. They go to work to Shanghai or Suzhou or Xiamen and so on. They are not entitled to schooling. They are not entitled to hospital services. They are not entitled to any form of pensions. And you have a privileged class on top that has been able to live off almost, can be defined as slave work. Because this is in China you have, and I call this is a form of almost some element of a slave society, because you live off the hardship of people who are identical to you. I mean, they're totally identical, but they get very low salary and no social benefit. In Europe, if you immigrate to Europe, immediately you're entitled to the same social services any European does, and if you go and work for a company, you're entitled to the same salary. I mean, this thing doesn't exist in China. It's legal. So you have this incredible population of 200 million people, plus their parents, plus their kids. Basically, more than half of China, they feel they are like being exploited now. They live a miserable life. They have terrible, very long working conditions. They have to go work. They have to live day and night, and they go home only once a year. And they would like to be able to have their life where they work. They would like to be able to have their kids joining them, but they can't. So everybody's trying to fix it. There are things now. They're setting up. There's a movement, special school for kids of immigrants. So if you're an immigrant, you can send your kids to a special school. So the reform of the whole system is one of the pillars. Now they're saying we've got to reform the system because it's a time bomb. Okay, now it's unsustainable because we are going toward, China needs to go toward the service economy, increase urbanization. You cannot have this time bomb. It's in the system. And the big problem there is deep inside. It's just like the urban citizen don't like to share. It's not that anybody can make a one-stop decision. I mean, all the pure Shanghainese, they don't want to share with the immigrants. They want everything to themselves. They don't want to open their hospital. They don't want to incur more costs for. A lot of let me say, a lot of public expenditures in China are done by the provinces, are expensed by the province. So the people who are entitled to their their money, take away defense, which is centralized, and so security, which is centralized. Everything else is basically centralized. And then they want to share. to Shanghainese and tell him that, you know, all of a sudden, all the immigrants that you see everywhere, because they are the people that work are immigrants. Okay? You see like roads being worked on, and you see like houses being built and factories. They're all immigrants. Tell them that tomorrow their kids, their family are going to come over, the population is going to swell, and then they have to pay for their school, and their kids are going to mix with, and their own Shanghainese kids are going to mix with them. But them with them, they don't want it. Yeah. So, like, one of the tragic strength of China is that there is an urban middle class that has been thriving on the back of a billion people working their ass off for not much. This is absolutely true. And it is not that the party at the top knows and it doesn't want. You know, obviously the party realizes this is a problem. This growing inequality and this growing rigidity cannot last for long. But the question is, how do we manage? How do we get like the urban people to agree, and how do we get them to share? How much money do we have to spend? How much can we afford to spend? And in China, I mean, many things are not that different. We exaggerate the differences, okay, in many ways. But there is one thing that is different in China compared to anything else, which is the size of the population. In China, we're always talking about 1.5 billion people. It's like, in Brazil, it's probably 1/10. Even Brazil is a gigantic country, but it's 1/10 China. So, trying to fix systems, we have a very well entrenched urban class, where you have all the power position kept by people who are not immigrant, all the apparatus in the party kept by people who are not immigrant. How do you do it? So, I keep saying a lot of announcements about how the Foucault system is going to be fixed. Now, a lot of announcements that they will fix, but I never really seen any concrete proposal about how they think they're going to fix it. I mean, you can go on Google and you'll find a lot of material on the subject. And maybe you can pull out some proposal here and there, and get translated in English, that would be interesting. This is very much at the top of the agenda of this administration, and that is supposed to run for the next 5+5. And they sort of like have the urgency. They feel the urgency to fix it, but they frankly have not seen any proposal. And I reached the conclusion that Chinese, you know, whether it's one party or it's more than there's a multi-party, I mean, politicians are all the same. And now Chinese politicians are getting to resemble more and more European politicians. They don't want to talk. They talk, no action. But also reached the conclusion that the Communist Party is not very proactive. There is a lot of infighting. It's not like one body. There are different streams. There's the left, the right, the center left. They will, but it's very reactive. So I don't think they will be able to come up with a very proactive solution, but I think eventually at some point they will have to, when the situation really worsens, they will have to do something about it. And they're not very far off. So on one hand, they may proceed cautiously and allow them. Now they're working on schools, really. They're working on schools, and like the immigrants pay for their own school. They get together to school their children. So in schooling there is some progress. In health, I haven't seen much progress yet. So they have to pay for if they want to access health. They set up a special health scheme for farmers, which is basically what immigrants are entitled to, which is not much. Really doesn't really pay off the expenses in Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, but it may help, but they have to go home to have treatment. Otherwise, they get sick and they don't get treatment. They go to some wizard doctor or whatever. This is the whole construction. This is the Hukou system. The Hukou system, which is, to me is sadly is one of the reasons of China's success. Because if they tell me that tomorrow in Italy we can just import 20 million immigrants and make them work in factories and pay them $20 a month, even Italy is going to pick up. Okay? That is not that big a problem. Italy will become very competitive very, very soon. Yeah, given no labor rights, no nothing, I mean, that thing is really going to fly. But you do have also a welfare problem in the sense that the whole, when the whole like state communist system came down and they privatized the companies and so on, so it went the whole because it was one company, and the company had the hospital, had the school, and everything. And they said, okay, says they have to make money, they have to privatize. So very easily, what they did is chopped off everything that was not core to the industrial asset, and they started making money. But then the whole welfare system that was in existence up until '79, of course, disappeared. So even for the urban Chinese, a lot of what was social welfare is no longer there. So they're in the process of rebuilding the social welfare also for urban dwellers. Because before it was very much linked to each individual company anybody would work for. And now you have different systems. I mean, if you work for the government has its own pension scheme and entitled to some hospital. And if you are a private employee, if you employ in a company, and the company has to pay Social Security contribution amount to a good 30% of your salary, they come cheap, you're entitled also. If you are a government employee, or you are a formal company employee, you are entitled to pension. It could be state pension, it could be a private pension, there is a pension fund. You are entitled to some medical care, but the informal population, which is still the large majority, is entitled to nothing. No medical care, no pension. Now, the system is still not sufficient. Chinese feel that they have to save to compensate for the pensions, and they feel like they have to save to pay for health when they get sick. And this is one of the very main reasons that may explain the low degree of consumption, but it's not the most important. We tend to say to each other that the reason consumption in China is so low as a percentage of GDP because people have to save for the future, but ain't through that much, really. But that's we get into different systems. But welfare state is not that large. The Chinese themselves are proceeding very gradually. they're working on something, they work on a different scheme, they work on a health scheme for the farmers, as I said before, but they're still uncertain over how much they can afford and for the future, because all this thing costs, and they're still very skeptical of welfare society. Most Chinese see Europe as being very sick because Europe is a welfare society. That's the way they look at us. Ask European, they think too much welfare, too much protection. So I don't follow the subject. The debate is there, welfare is going up, but they will never become a welfare state. Okay? I don't know to what extent I answer your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that was question number one. This is how Italy is approaching Italian investment. There is, it's interesting. In general, Europe has become more and more open to Chinese investment, especially since the crisis onward. Now, basically, every European country is trying to attract Chinese investment. Okay, because I'm talking about Chinese invest in a number of asset classes. So we really have to, they invest in mining. That doesn't take place in Europe, because there's no mining. They invest in oil and gas. That doesn't take place in Europe, because Europe doesn't have oil and gas. They invest in agriculture. That doesn't take place in Europe. They invest in real estate. They invest in listed stock and equities. They list on the New York Stock Exchange and so on. And they also invest in industrial assets. And that takes place in Europe. Now, over the course of the year, there's been an increasing acceptance of Chinese investment for two reasons. First, because people have realized that it's actually not as bad as initially thought. Chinese don't come to close down and then they take the production home. They actually, they tend to invest because they need to buy technology, know-how, and branding. Already, Western societies, industrial society, have been hollowed up quite a bit. I mean, there is no company that is in place and surviving today that doesn't do a lot of outsourcing, a lot of buying in Asia, China, Vietnam, and whatever. It depends on the sector, but there are lots of companies that have to close, and many companies have survived and are having their stuff produced in Bangladesh or whatever, all the way to China and so on. So we haven't had many. Yeah, a few Chinese have failed, but in general, they invested in the assets they bought and they grew them and so on. The second reason that we have become Europeans, because you ask about Italians, but I can expand it to Europeans, because it doesn't make any difference. The second reason was because Europeans have no money. You've probably heard about the leveraging going on in Europe. I mean, after the financial crisis, there's been like the financial system was seriously damaged. It allowed capitals to go into recapitalizing banks. The Basel rules for bank capital have been raised. Banks have to decrease the amount of loans they give. So there is basically a scarcity of liquidity, especially in Southern Europe, but everywhere in Europe, more or less. And in China, in Asia, there is access savings. So, you know, now all of a sudden, we turn into beggars. And that's how they see us. They see us beggars. You know, if you go to the big Chinese investment house, there are a lot of Europeans begging for money. Okay? Now, obviously, like in every society, every society would be layered, okay? The most exposed are the business people. Business people have to travel, they have to sell abroad, they have to buy abroad, so they tend to be more cosmopolitan, more open to the world. And then you have some element of the society a little behind. So I like explaining to a policeman, to an Italian policeman, that Chinese investment is good. It's still hard. Okay? It's still sort of hard. I mean, they're not trained in economics, and they all they see the whole world as us and them, good and bad. Okay? So they're not, the kind of secret services, basically policemen, are seconded there. So they are not trained in economics, so they did say a number of stupid things in this report, but the most tragic thing is that a newspaper that was supposed to be intelligent put that report in the first page. To me, that report was a display of how poorly trained our secret services. I mean, it was embarrassing, but they felt. So they said things that they basically said that the Chinese had bought Ferretti, the big boat maker, and it was like a threat to national, and that thing has been on the press for. They learned it from the press. Everybody knew the Chinese had bought Ferretti, and the Chinese were setting up the headquarters of China rating agency, Dagong in Milan. It's rating. They said is they didn't understand the rating has to do with bond rating, primarily listed company. They said they really said a bunch of stupid, like in every society. Even I really do think, when you go out and you see all the skirmishes the Chinese are having with the islands and so on, and even on my LinkedIn, I have a lot of Chinese because LinkedIn is open, and some of the Chinese say, oh yeah, China's going to become an empire. Yeah, so there are, even the Chinese themselves, but I only talk to businessmen, so the Chinese I see are very open, they send their kids to foreign universities, they want to travel, I don't have access to their inner society. I don't deal with the security people. Most people don't speak English. So how do I deal with them? I have no reason to deal with them. I don't deal with the military. What the heck are they thinking? Right? They told me that the military people in the Asian army want to go to war against Japan for those islands. Every society has part of it which is most exposed, and part of it which is more backward. Generally, security and army tend to be more backward, okay? In general, okay? But then it depends. It may not be so in other parts. So this is what I thought was nothing. It was so stupid it was totally ignored by the Chinese themselves. And now people are scrambling to get Chinese money everywhere. From Angela Merkel to the French president, they're all going trying to get money because they have incredible amount of savings, 50% of Chinese GDP savings. They have a lot of excess money, and they know very well that they finance the U.S. federal budget and so on, and so everybody's scrambling for that money. The power to private, that was your question? This is a hell of a question. Yes, in China, private property is allowed. The country structure is very modern. Nobody is talking about communism. They basically hate every element of communism. They just don't change the name of the party. They don't leave the image of Mao Zedong, just not to give people, to show that there's continuity. They don't like to admit their own mistakes, because they made many mistakes in their history. But no, but the problem is, nobody is saying that private society cannot exist, but the power is only with the party. And the best way for the party to retain its power is through the control of the financial system. And this is it. We are opening a huge Pandora box here. Because basically, the banks and all other financial intermediaries obey what the party and the government say. Remember, in China, first they elect the secretary of the party, and 6 months later the secretary of the party automatically becomes president. So the party comes before the government. I think Chinese constitution says everything is under the party. Okay? Now, yes. So yes, you can have private business, but the power over the money resides with the government and the party, which I define as the system. So in one word, I talk about everybody. And the resource allocation process is done according to the criteria set at the top. That means that if you are a private entrepreneur, if you want to become big, what do you need, in your opinion? To become from small to medium to big, what do you need?
Access to credit.
Eh?
Access to credit.
Right. But who has control over credit?
You need the support of the community.
Right. So every time they say, "Oh, Huawei is state-owned and or is linked to the defense because you and then it cannot be trusted because you think that the private entrepreneur has become big in spite of the government or regardless of the government." In all practical terms, it doesn't make a single speck of difference. I mean, whether a company is state-owned, half state-owned, listed and state-owned, on private and listed, I mean, whatever, to get there, there've been like several instances through their history where they needed credit, they needed to approach capital markets and so on, and that the party played the role. So everybody, by the end of the day, does what the party says. Period. I mean, this is, so I mean, the whole distinction they tell us, oh, it's a private company, but no state-owned, is crap. It's crap. It's that you can be private, you cannot be a member of the party and become big. Don't give a damn if you're not a member of the party. The state to play with the system, but then in the end, all the big entrepreneurs have to become a member of the party. And they all sit in the National People Congress, by the way. Because we have them in, when he said, he opened to the private businessmen. Private businessmen came into the party, and that's it. And there is, the minute you are into the party, the rule is that the rules of the party come before anything else. So So that means that if you're a private entrepreneur and go to Portugal and they order you to do something, they can order on the basis of that, of your loyalty to the party. Since you are a party member, you have to obey the party asks you to do so, you have to do it. This is why when you have corruption cases, you can see that first people are investigated by the party disciplinary commission, and only after 1 or 2 years they are turned over to the normal justice system. And this is very interesting. I even wonder, when we have about 200 companies listed in Chinese companies listed in New York. And I wonder what they write in that prospectus. Well, what do they write in the prospectus? Because those managers, those Chinese companies, their loyalty. Their primary loyalty is not to the company, it's not to the shareholders. If I put the money into a Chinese company, I know I'm giving the money to someone whose primary duty is not to give me a return. He has to give me a return, but if he receives an order otherwise, that's finished. I don't have control over human resources. Because human resources and finance is total domain of the party, I've got to tell you. Every personal move and so on is all handled by the party. So I always been curious to see what kind of compromise they reached and what did they write in those perspectives. What they say. If the truth, basically is every single manager in China Telecom, China Mobile, of PetroChina or whatever, is 99.9% a party member, and the appointment decisions are decided by the party, and his primary obedience is to the party. So what is left of me, minority shareholder? It's just like, I don't know whether I'm satisfied with my answer about. But now the question of whether now we touch one of the big issues, which is the hukou system. The system, another huge system that China has now is that the process of resource allocation, credit decision, resource allocation decision. That is, a well-functioning financial system has to give credit and capital to whoever best deserves it. Why? Because the best individual can do the best return, can provide the best return, and in the end they make more money for themselves, they make more money for the employee, they pay the highest taxes, they have the highest growth. This is why, in general, we need a good financial system. Because the financial system is the heart of everything. Blood has to be distributed equally and functionally, with no interruption, in the right place, at the right time, it has to get there. And now, the fact is, being so dominated by politics, the Chinese financial system is not doing a fantastic job of resource allocation. And this is already becoming obvious after it has functioned in many ways, because some dysfunctionalities were compensated by an incredible, fantastic cost structure, no social pressure, great export market, we're compensated by no environmental issues. But now, after so many years, the fact that the financial system is not market-based, but that the decision of the credit decision, the resource allocation decision, are in the hands of state-owned enterprises, state banks, government, is not an optimal economic model for China. China has the worst ratio of investment to growth country in the world. That is, for every unit of growth, China needs a huge amount of investment. It's like an engine, yeah, that can go, a car that can go very fast, but to go that fast, to go that 10 kilometers faster than Andrea, you need twice as much gasoline. And how much is that going to go for? And the dysfunctionality of this financial system are evident in many ways, are evident because once in a while, because there is overcapacity, there's way too much investment. So lots of sectors suffer on overcapacity, like the solar sector, even the overcapacity is endemic to the system. Bad debt are endemic to the system. Once in a while, banks go bankrupt, they have to be fixed. So it's another big issue about how power is distorting how this power system is no longer in line with a sustainable economic development. There's no question about it. Okay, this is evident. The fact is that in the process, in the process of getting there, you have created very powerful lobby being created in China. The lobby of the state-owned enterprise, the lobby of the bureaucrats, the lobby of the large families, the so-called communist aristocracy, and now to defeat that, and they feel they are entitled. It's a very exclusive society, so they feel they are entitled to make their own decision. They're entitled not to pay dividends. They're entitled to lend to whoever they want to. They're entitled to the best land available. They're entitled to get into the best IPO available. So, I mean, in order to change this, you have some very powerful element of the society who really live very well through it. And now you have to break it off. And this is another big issue. Okay? Which doesn't really go along with the who-call system. Okay? Because you can have a very modern Chinese that says you should have a market-oriented financial system, enough with this political crap, but the immigrant is an immigrant. But for them, an immigrant is someone who came from 100 kilometers away. For them, an immigrant is not a non-Chinese. An immigrant is a Chinese. Okay? Then that can be a standard. You can ask further questions. China, Brazil is an interesting case because I don't think that China and Brazil are set on a course of getting along for very long, because China has a nexus of manufacturing goods. So China likes to buy raw materials and export manufactured goods. But the Brazilians have figured out that they cannot live, there are way too many, they cannot live on natural resources alone. Brazil needs a well-developed industrial society. So in that regard, Brazil sees the flood of Chinese investment as sort of like Chinese cheap manufactured goods. They see it as an evil. So because it does threaten the existence of its own manufacturing system, which is not necessarily the most competitive of all, because it's always been tremendously protected. So in the case of Brazil, is one of the most is pro-China when it gets to sell soybeans and coal and this. So some elements that are involved with the primary sector in Brazil are very pro-China. But if you talk to the industrial federation, the industrialists, they really don't want to import China bicycles. You know, they want to make bicycles in China. They don't want Chinese cars. So so in the case of Brazil, there is sort of like a good trade combination of some emerging disputes to come. And I don't see the relation so linear. But some of these elements will come up also with African nations very soon. That's, because very soon also Africa will realize that selling copper or selling iron ore and so on is just not enough to develop a society. Very few society can only live only exclusively off natural resources. I mean, of course, you have Kuwait, or if you are Dubai, Abu Dhabi, of course, a few people sitting on like billions of barrels of oil, you can. But for example, you know who's the biggest oil producer in the world? You know who is the biggest oil producer in the world? Oil producer. Who is the biggest oil producer in the world? Who?
In the Middle East?
No, in the world. Who is the biggest oil producer in the world?
They have the biggest.
The biggest oil and gas producer in the world is Russia. And the Russians are not that good, well off. You know who are among the wealthiest countries in the world? Singapore, Hong Kong, Switzerland. How much oil do they have? Zilch. Well, no matter how many natural resources you have, what really creates value in a society is work. It's people and their genius and their hard work. And I think now, of course, China and Africa is greeted because they do infrastructure that are tied to unlocking natural resources. So it's a good start. But it cannot be the end. I mean, to get this 6-7 million Africans to go to a path of development and keep the society engaged, they're going to need more than that. They can't just live off selling China raw materials. Also because China is slowing down now. They're not going to go on and buy indefinitely because there are like flows happening in the economic model. I just like, this is just like, we opened up to some of your questions, and Giorgio, what is the thing? When do we have a break or?
When your time is up, we can have a break in now, we can have a break in an hour.
You're about to ask a question?
I was just looking at your blog and I saw this article. I was looking at how will the Chinese dream be reconciled with America. So I'm curious, coming from the U.S., I was just looking over it and wondering, I don't know, more about this Chinese dream and what you see from there. But it's kind of another category.
No, this is, we are touching all the soft spot. Now, every administration has its own slogan. Hu Jintao had scientific development, and Xi Jinping came up with this Chinese dream. Okay, the fact is the Chinese dream has not been articulated yet. So we can guess about what he means, but he hasn't told us what he means. One thing we know for sure is that to him, Chinese dream, the way he has expressed himself, the way China has expressed itself, Chinese dream is a strong China. I mean, the Chinese, they have this thing and they have to be powerful. So he went around, he created the military, and he went on saying the military has to be ready for war, they have to be ready for fight, okay. And so like they scare all the people off, okay. And then you started all these bitches with Vietnam, Philippines, and then Korea, India, Japan. For sure, Chinese dream means more powerful China, more assertive China. But they haven't told us the rest. But I can tell you what the Chinese want. Okay? Chinese would like to eat seafood, would like for their kids not to get poisoned by baby powder, would like to breathe fresh air, would like to be able to breathe clean air, they would love to drink from the tap of the water in the kitchen. They would like to be able to afford a house. They would love to go to a hospital and not to have to kill the doctor. Okay? So the Chinese dream, the dream of the common people are much more basic than you may think they are. Okay? They would like to have an improvement in the quality of their life. They would like to have larger houses. They would like to have, a sky like this, which they don't have. Okay, but this is, it's useless for me to tell you about the situation of the environment in China, right? You know what it's like, right? There are many times where, like, I live in Beijing, I cannot see across the street. And the pollution comes in, and you feel it, just like it's powder. It's not fog. And when you go into the baggage claim area at the airport, you already feel it. It is there. So the fog comes inside, and it's really bad. You start coughing right away, and it's really unpleasant. This is what they don't want. There is no problem with crime. It's a fairly crime-free society. They have no problem with crime. They have no problem with immigration or so on. They have the immigrants who like not to be immigrants. Regular people are okay. The regular people would like to have it a little better than they do have today. When they come here, says they can't believe the air. This is when I meet my friends in the States and how you like it here. Oh yeah, I walk. I have some Chinese friends who stay in Boston for a year. I said, yeah, we walk for hours there. So nice to be out. So just don't go out. In China, you don't go out. Period. So, immigrants like to have access to what they see as the privilege of the urban society. The urban society would like to be able to see trees, to be able to see lawn, to be able to see rivers, to be able to breathe fresh air, to be able to afford housing, bigger housing, and so on. Not so much about about the aspiration for democracy per se is something that belongs to the few intellectuals. They just have this incredible sense of envy for the rich, because they feel the rich have accrued their envy in an unfair way. Okay? They feel that the rich have, since the system is made the way I just told you, is a little political, they think it's all a matter of connection. It's a little different. There is not like the admiration for Steve Jobs, the admiration for Bill Gates, but however, he made Microsoft starting from his dorm at Harvard, okay? Can be the wealthiest man in the world, but at the end of the day, none of us hates Bill Gates. I mean, you heard every single penny, probably. He did a lot of good for all of us. No, in China it's not like that. There is a tremendous amount of social envy. They think the people at the top don't quite deserve it. The immigrants would like to be urban resident. The urban resident would like to have better quality of life. None of them like democracy, but all of them, most of them hate the power system. I mean, they don't talk about it, but just like they think it's riddled with corruption, even more. I mean, even more than I do. If they could talk, they would say more. It's not my job to stir it up, but I don't even want to hear. I'm not even interested, to be honest. But it's not my job. But there is a strong resentment because they think society is not being fair.
You said that the Chinese in a certain city cannot go to a hospital, the hospital in that region. Do they give them IDs for identification, or how do they do that?
Well, of course. I mean, depending on where you work, you are entitled to special treatment in special hospital. Okay?
And you can only go to that hospital.
See, I mean, there are very few. You cannot, it's not like here that you can go anywhere. No, there are just like, you go to a particular hospital, and hospital are multi-layered, and according to your rank, you are assigned to a particular range of treatment. The hospital in itself is, there is first class, second class, third class, fourth class. You see what I mean? Not only you're tied to a certain hospital, but your ranking and your position allows you to a specific degree of treatment. Okay? So if you have higher ranks, you have better treatment. I had a problem one day, and I had to go to the hospital on Sunday. So, and have surgery. It was urgent surgery. It wasn't a big deal. I had an infection. And my doctors say, yeah, you couldn't go in and have everything done for Sunday afternoon. They said, are you sure? And I said, should we go to an international or to a national hospital? And I asked her, she said national. And I said, you have Guanxi, right? Yes, I have Guanxi, don't worry. Guanxi means relationship. But she kept saying, do not worry about the entrance. Don't pay attention to the lobby. Don't pay attention to the lobby. Please don't pay attention to the lobby. I go in, it was a huge hospital compound, very big. I go in, and actually the lobby looked pretty good to me. Used to the Italian hospital, the lobby was great. Then we got into this elevator, and it was like each floor was urology. It was a double language. It was English and Chinese, urology, pediatrician, gynecology, and so on. And then it was stopped at floor 16. And then I said, which floor are we going? We're going 17. I said, oh shit, there's nothing there. Yes, this VIP. So I go into VIP, just like I go in. It was like a fantasy land. It was like not even the Hilton. My bedroom was as big as this class. I had a huge bed, I had a huge LCD screen. I had, they did all my tests on Sunday afternoon. Blood, urine, x-rays and everything. And generally in the hospital you have to call to get attention. I was the opposite. I had a line of nurses coming on me, and I was sick because at that time I was hooked up with the TV series Prison Break. So I was into Prison Break. I just didn't give a damn. I was into Prison Break like crazy, and I did the test. Then they put me in this very comfortable bed at this huge screen. I sent my driver home, got my Prison Break, I had my Prison Break there. I didn't give a shit about the operation. I was watching Prison Break. And then I had this line of nurses coming and talk to me. They were bugging me. They were like so nice. They were so nice. I wanted to do that. But I had to deal with them. They wanted to talk to me. They were like, fabulous. But they wouldn't leave me alone. Okay? Now, and then all of a sudden, they were supposed to cut, but the thing broke by itself. So like half an hour before the operation, it was solved. Okay? Done. And then I said, do me a favor. I don't want to stay here tomorrow. Don't send me home. I was already in. I know my Prison Break. Give me a favor. Leave me here. Okay? So I steal the file, and tomorrow you're going to give me another IV because I had to get all the antibiotic IV. So I stayed in the hospital. So great. So great. And so at some point, since this thing happened, I was supposed to be operated like in the evening, and then I said, now I'm not going to be operated. Now, shit, I'm hungry. I said, I'm hungry. I said, no problem. They came and they gave me a stack of menu like this. It was all takeout food. Because the kitchen was closed already, because the kitchen closed at 6 o'clock. So I ordered takeout, I ordered Mexican food, pizzas and stuff, and it was a ball. And watching Prison Break. It was like fabulous. And then later I inquired, and they told me that in that hospital the VIP floor wasn't even like the top. I hadn't seen the top of the sky yet. Okay? There was more. I felt, so I went to my Chinese friends and look, yeah. They said they take important people. See, they take them seamen. So basically, now the top Chinese go there. I thought I was up in the sky, but I thought I was in a Ferrari, but it was like maybe it was if I lucky was a Skoda. That was way much better. That was my experience with it. And then I went to see other friends of mine, and got in the hospital. I went to see them and so on. And every time they just said, first of all, you have to go to the hospital with the Chinese, nobody speaks English. And then they said, okay, no, we is rank, so give me his rank that way he is. So the rank of the person you are going to see will determine where he will be located. Very classy society. Very classy society. Because he picked up a lot of the old, with the dismantling of communism, he picked up some of the old top-down Confucian sort of, Sei tratta che devo fare? Ah, non è mica mia moglie, eh? Ah no, voglio essere chiaro.
Sono un'ex allieva.
Un'ex allieva. Dai, no, adesso non rompere i coglioni, tieni, capito? Ma lo so, sei venuto a prendere la roba.
Ciao, ciao.
What was I saying? So you got me distracted. What was I saying? I was saying something. Yeah. The society is a society where power counts a lot. So if you do, I mean, people do crave for power. And once they have it, they need to show it. Okay, it's not like in the US environment, it's just like you may have power, you may see a team, you can hardly understand who the boss is. In China, you know who the boss is. You really damn make sure that everybody knows and who's the boss. I mean, when he travels, the more people he travels with, the more he's the boss. He walks ahead and the people walk behind. Okay? The more people walk behind, they really like this sort of this sort of, which is not part of my sort of see, I mean, we do care, but not, no. Some of us care more than others. I don't care much about power, but we don't, now the tendency now is more of an informal, flat structure, empowerment, that kind of stuff. In China, no, empowerment, no, the boss rules. All the stuff, and you give power to the people, and like quick decision making, so that ain't gonna work. But being in China as in a good position at a fairly old age is pleasant because they treat you like God. They don't treat me as garbage. I'm wise, There are some positive, you're like you're wise. So they have a lot of respect for seniority. So that's an element which is very good. If you talk to young kids, they listen to you. If I talk to my son, he thinks he knows it all. He doesn't even listen to me. I talk to the young kids in China, and they're very pleasant. They take note and they thank you for everything they do. So it makes it. It's just like, I think I'm in the right place at the right time. So the only thing I had to give up going to China was bicycling. No, you can't really bike in China. I mean, like bicycle, and ain't gonna work. Should we have a break? We have more questions? Then I tell you what I'm doing. How about that?
You have 4 hours more. Keep something more.
Sì, ma sai, Giorgio, no, but on the thing they asked me, I can go on and on for, on some of the question, I can go on and on, I can talk, I can have 4 hours only on financial systems.
Let's do a break.
What do you want me to do now? You want me to tell you what I do?
Yes.
The trouble is, the presentation is in Italian. No, we do have a presentation in English, but I don't know why.
They should speak it. They should speak it.
I didn't know that.
At the end of the year, so.
Okay, let me. Okay. what they do. I don't know. Okay. Then, with respect, all my time now is in managing this Mandarin Capital Partner, which is a private equity fund. You know what the private equity fund is? And which is a cross-border Sino-European private equity fund. We basically we put capital into Chinese company that have European upside, or we put capital into European company that do have a Chinese upside. That's how we make money. We make money by arbitraging between China and Europe. It's been the very first foreign private equity that was invested by the Chinese government in 2006. Never before. Actually, private equity didn't exist basically in China until 2008 or 9. There was not a law that regulated it. But we were the very first foreign private equity fund invested by the Chinese government in 2006. We made the largest acquisition of a Chinese entity in Europe in 2008, and we are still up to date after 6-7 years. We are still the largest China outbound investment platform for Europe. Not for Africa, because in Africa there is a China African fund which is about 5 billion. But we are still, for the developed market, we're still the largest outbound Chinese platform. So I'm talking about here, I'm telling you about the first fund. You know, private equity are like entities that open up, invest for 5 years, divest for 5 years, then dissolve. So we already, I'm telling you about Mandarin Capital Partner 1, even though we are already into Mandarin Capital Partner 2. So this is what I've done in the last, since 2006. Now, for the last year, I'm working both in managing Mandarin Capital 1 and launching Mandarin Capital Partner 2. This I probably tell you. We have we had 2 closings. Basically, a private equity fund has is a closed-end fund. It's not like a mutual fund that can expand and people put the money in and invest. Private equity mainly invest in non-listed entities. And once the fund is closed, nobody can come in. It generally has 2 closings, as a first intermediate closing and a final closing. Our first closing happened on May 3rd, 2007. Our final closing happened in December 2007. And I remember very well because it was December 28th, it was my birthday. So, remember, we closed at 328 million euro. It says standard length about 10 years, That is, investment periods of 5 years, divestment period for 5 years. Actually, you can. I mean, during the investment period, you can divest. But during the following 5 years, you cannot invest. So in the first 5 years, you can buy and sell. In the second batch of 5 years, you can only sell. The way the team is remunerated, the structure is made, is where you have the fund and you have a management company. The management company is remunerated on the basis, this is very standard, 2% on managed capital, plus we take for us 20% of any return in excess of 7%, I think. So if our fund makes a return of let's say 20%, minus 7 is 13. Of that 13%, 80% goes to the shareholder and 20% go to the management company. The shareholders are called limited partners. The partners who manage the fund are called general partner. So in this particular case, I'm a general partner and I sit in the management company. I mean, the investment process is first investment. First of all, in private equity, you basically you see 100 companies invest in one. So there's a huge shuffling of paper and huge evaluation. When you get down to make an investment, the partner, there is a partnership structure, and the partner makes the investment committee, which is no shareholders involved, and that is required unanimity. So only one person is against the deal doesn't go through. And then plus we have a board of director, which is appointed, which is, the management company has a board of director, an independent director, and for the approval is required majority, not unanimity. But the shareholders, once they put the money in, they have no say. Okay, you just entrust the money, but then they can't just like, they have to go with it. I mean, they can't meddle with the decision. So now we are in 2013. So we are in this period. We are basically selling companies. Now we expect to. We already sold 2. We are selling 2 more, and we made 10 investments. We already sold our biggest investment. I don't know what this thing, because I never see this document, so I don't want to anticipate. Well, we think we're going to return about 2.5 times our money, which is private equity is like wine. That is a fund have different returns depending on which year they were created, because a return of fund is heavily dependent on the development of the economy, on the development of the equity market, and so on. So for our vintage 2007 was a very, very bad vintage, because the crisis came 2008 and 2009, plus there was the Euro crisis in 2011, right? 11. Right? So it was a pretty bad vintage. It's like, but we returned 2.5 times our money, which is a very good return for our vintage. That puts us at the very top 1%. Because we were able to return the money in a period where most investors in the world lost money. Now, I told you there was the limited partner that put the money into this fund, which is a Luxembourg company, Why do we pick a Luxembourg company? Because most, first of all, because in a Luxembourg company, you don't pay capital gains. And all private equity funds are incorporated in jurisdiction where capital gain taxes don't apply. Okay, so basically the American investors like to have their fund incorporated in the Caymans, and European investors like to have their funds incorporated in Luxembourg. Luxembourg is a good jurisdiction. They have good law, they have good supervision, they have a very favorable taxation, and it is an EU country. Okay, so it's, and this is like 95% of the private equity fund you see today are incorporated in Luxembourg. Then, in our particular case, we had, this is very atypical, we have 3 large banks that participated also in the management company. Generally, that, as I said to you, Mandarin Capital Partner is the fund. Mandarin Capital Management is the management company that manages the fund. So generally, the investors don't participate in the management company. In our case, we have 3 very large financial institutions that had participated in the management company. They had 40% of the management company, but they were minority. So we still had the control over the money. They had access to the board, they could say, but we still had retained the control of the money. And for this management company, we developed 2. Basically, this company managed money, then created 2 companies to manage both the Chinese side and the European side. So in China, we created management advisory in Hong Kong that now has 2 offices, one in Shanghai and one in Beijing. And then in Italy, we created management advisory SRL that has an office in Milan. In Mandarin 2, you will have a 3rd management advisory company with office in Frankfurt. This is the future, because we are moving to Germany. Then remind me to tell you why we're going to Germany, because I don't know whether this says how we deployed our money, and 56% was capital increase. 21% was leveraged buyouts, 18% were like straight shares of straight share purchasing, and 9%, what is it? 9% were management buyout and 2% were management buy-in. You know why 56% is capital increase? Because we define ourselves as a growth capital. We would help Chinese company grow in China and European company grow Chinese company grow in Europe, European company grow in China. So if they want to grow, they need the money. So I'm not going to buy your share. If you come to me and give me a story you're going to grow in China, that means you need the money. Okay, so you ain't gonna sell me. You ain't gonna sell me your company, right? I mean, I can put money in. I'm not willing to buy you out. Otherwise, your story is not credible. Because the whole system hinges upon someone convincing us that they can really make good money with our money. So if you come to me and give me a very good story about what you're gonna do, that means you need to invest money. Okay? And that means you don't have enough money, and I'm glad to give it to you if your story is convincing. This is like sectors. We are pretty diversified here, but I think all the sectors we looked at, these are now where we invested. It was mainly mechanics, steel, textile and fashion, electronic devices, packaging and paper, chemical, cosmetics, rubber, plastic products, and others, of which 75% were like Italian investment and not were like company looked at, okay? And in the course of our 5 years of investment period, we looked at 280 companies, which gives you an idea. Before I told you 100 companies a year, you can say, oh, that you lied, because in reality it was like something more like 60 companies, 55 companies a year. Yeah, many companies. I mean, like, you know, these are the ones that formally we put in the pipeline, but then there are so many we just see and we don't even inject in the pipeline. Generally, the company is looked at and then they say, oh, okay, let's put the pipeline and see how it evolves. Let's put it on watch. Because by the time we get approached or we approach a company, until the time of eventual investment, it will be 3 years. So we throw the company in the pipeline and we start looking. And formally, we're looking at about 280 companies. Informally, considering all the ones we discarded early on, it was much more than that. We made, hold on a second then, because I need to say what my colleague was saying. We made 8 investments. No, but because they're different pages. Hold on a second. This is the first. Okay. Yeah. We invested in Gasket, the number 1, which is a leading producer of gas, oil and gas component, made component for valves. We invested in Uticals that makes active principle molecule pharmaceutical. We invested in Cifa, was a leading European producer of machine for concrete machinery. We invested in IMA, which is the world's largest producer of pharmaceutical equipment. We invested in Dedalus, which is Italy one of Europe's largest medical hospital software. We invested in Italmatch Chemicals, which is probably the world's largest phosphorus derivative company. We invested in Dagon, which is China rating agency. And we invested in Suzhou Tianji, which is a Chinese API company. And we invested in GBS, which is a company that makes filter for medical and automotive usage. Now, these are companies we invested in. The fact is, these companies on their own make a lot of other investments. So we made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are 9 investments. But for example, Gasket made a plant in China. Uticals, we made 2 acquisitions or 3. Oh, yes, 2. I think we bought, I don't know why. Anyway, in Uticals we bought 2 more. There was a Swiss company missing here though. And another company which I don't remember the name. With IMA we made an acquisition in China and a new plant in China. With Dedalus we made 2 acquisitions in China that don't show here. With Italmatch we made 1 big acquisition. Actually, Italmatch turnover in 2013 is going to be 250 million euro, almost double. There's nothing. With GBS, we made 2 acquisitions in the United States, though. So, this 2 things. The fact you acquire 9 companies, acquire 3, really depends on what you do and what you acquire. Because the company can be silent, it can be very active. So the turnover of acquisition is much higher. And actually, I tell you a little secret, in private equity, not only you make money, and this is a big debate, on the 2% management fee, but you also make transaction fees. Every time you buy something, you earn a transaction rate. This is a big debate. So in theory, our revenue should have been 2% of 328, should have been 6,560,000 a year euro. In reality, we're much higher than that because we kept every company we bought, we got earned a transaction fee. Okay, this is something that I learned along the way. So there are many ways, and this is a big debate, and whether we bought company, we buy a mid-sized company that was, we are not the VC, you know the difference, which is, private equity is a fairly general word. Then within private equity we have venture capital, and because people think, private equity, venture capital, the same thing. No, venture capital is just one aspect of private equity that we don't look at. We are not specialists in startup. Startup is a completely different business because in startup you have to make 100 investments, and one is enough to make a ton of money. We do growth equity, which is we buy either majority or minority position in profitable company that want to grow. So we have to be very careful. We don't do restructuring. There are especially distressed funds. We don't do restructuring. We don't do secondaries. We don't buy shares of other funds. And our focus is primarily mid-cap. There is no point that for European getting to China, in China, small ain't beautiful. In Italy for a long time, we've been saying to each other, small is beautiful. Yeah, small is beautiful, but in China it ain't. In China, you really need a lot of muscle, a lot of time, a lot of capital, a lot of patience. And many Italian companies, many European companies cannot afford that. So, and our focus is, Fiat will not be interested in us. Mercedes would not be interested. They go into a country and just make 300 people. Coca-Cola wouldn't. But mid-sized company, they are really lagging behind in access in that market. They don't have enough resources, whether they're financial, whether they're human, and that was our sector. Okay? I primarily, I see the urge, I saw the difficulty that mid-size had in access, also German mid-size, no difference, eh? Because you have Siemens doesn't bother, Mercedes doesn't bother, BMW doesn't bother, but a mid-size German company has the same damn problem as mid-size Italian company. The only difference is in Italy, they're basically all mid-sized or small. In Germany, you have some big. This is the only difference between Germany and Northern Italy. So generally, the company we looked at have sales in between 4 to 300 million, and we don't like to invest anything below 10 million. Actually, I don't think we never invested anything below 20, unless the thing was very strategic, because obviously to make a 1 million euro investment and making a 30 million euro investment, the time is the same. So to be honest, Dorius, if you come to me, the more money you ask me, the happier I am. The more money you are able to justify by me. Now, okay? We really like to invest big chunks, but still, since we don't risk too much, our portfolio, however, no investment can be more than 15-20% of our portfolio. Otherwise, we bet too much on any single company. Am I making sense to you? I Yeah, this I told you. Yeah, this is the other thing. The fund was conceived as being a European fund. Now, the fact is, we were successful immediately. It was very innovative. And immediately we got flooded by Italian companies. We had our waiting room filled. We never had to go and knock at any doors because people would line up, would beg to have us. Okay? And so in the end, we had such a huge pipeline of Italian company. And my point was, you know, we have so much work, and every deal in Italy ends up in Milan within a 3 kilometer square, within a 3 square kilometer perimeter. Why should I split the team and send people all over Europe and do deals? Because I have a critical mass in Milan, I have this huge pipeline in Milan, and there's no point in taking the risk and chasing deals. We can get German company come to us, Swiss company, Dutch company. I says, you know, but the deal, the team is, we have critical scale. We know the company, they all coming to us, and we don't need to sell ourselves. People know us and they're coming. So this is why it was conceived as a European, Sino-European fund. It turned out to be a Sino-Italian fund. But that, in the end, it gives us the credibility to then launch Mandarin 2 as a truly Sino-European, because we just opened in Germany. And there was no equivalent in Germany. So when we came down to our second fund, the Chinese, said, you've done so well in Italy, it's so difficult to make money in Italy. If you've done Italy, you can do Germany. In Germany, there's no competition. So we said, no, we better go to Germany and occupy that space before the Germans do their own funds and come down to Italy. As simple as that. So now, Mandarin 2 has a German partner, has an office in Frankfurt, a sub-office in Munich, and this is why now I'm spending most of my time in Germany, which is not a great country to be in, great people, socially speaking, it's not the top. I mean, they're nice people, but it's not that they make you laugh a lot. Yeah, this is pretty schooly. I know I'm in school. Determinants of expected return. I haven't gone back to this stuff in a while. Cash generation. I mean, how do we make money? Okay. Well, yeah. Gee, I haven't done this stuff in a while. Look at what jobs makes me do. I mean, generally, yeah, we make money in different ways. Okay, we make money in the differential between multiple. We generally in the market, you say. You pay, the company is valued on the basis of a multiple on the EBITDA, earnings before tax, depreciation, amortization. And there are two ways to make money. Either you expand the multiples, you buy for 7, you sell for 9, or you expand the EBITDA at the same multiple. You buy the company at 70, which is an EBITDA of 10 multiplied by 7, and then you take the EBITDA all the way to 20, and then you still sell it for 7, and then you sell for 140. So either you spend the multiple or you spend the EBITDA. Okay? And the difference in multiple can come in many times, can be a function of economic cycle. Now, for example, the equity markets are booming, so we make good money in all the companies we bought simply because a lot of money is going to equity now. Because the financial instruments have no return with all the easing going on in the world. So, another way to get a different multiple is if you're very smart on how you exit. Because you may decide, some stock market give higher multiple than other markets. There was a time when Milan was a multiple of 9 and China was a multiple of 40. So it was great to buy in Italy the multiple of 7 and then sell in China at a much higher multiple. That was a very easy, it was a multiple arbitrage between Europe and China. Or you can grow the EBITDA, and the way to grow the EBITDA, you grow the volume by selling more in China, you manufacture in China so you lower the cost. That's what we did with gasket, or whatever. Generally, our way to make money is, our model is, we grow the EBITDA because we expand the volume. We are a growth company. We don't go into a company and cut costs. We are really very oriented into finding more ways to create volume. So we expand the EBITDA, and we are very good at expanding the multiple because this arbitrage between markets that have different multiple, Europe and China, we can always find the right angle to exit. If the market is good for exit in China, we exit in China. If the market is good for exit in Europe, we exit in Europe. Okay? And by the time we buy, we don't know what is the good exit, but we then know whether the Chinese company can do well in Europe, or we then know whether the European company can do well in China. It's month and month of analysis. We have a pretty good handle on that. I mean, there are no surprises in that regard. So this is how we really make money. When we buy an Italian company, when the Italian company come to us and said, I want to go to China, I want to do all these things, and I can do this and that, then we have our independent Chinese team do the analysis. We sort of know how much we're going to sell, but we don't pay for it. I don't tell them I'm going to triple the size. So I buy them on a standalone basis, then I triple the size. So whatever happens after I buy is all ours. Is that clear? Since they come to us, I don't need to convince them. That was the strength of our appeal. That was the strength of the model. And luckily, the Chinese government has kept us as model fund, so no other fund has grown up like that. So we had a 6-hour lead. Because first the Chinese wanted to see whether this model would work. They tried many different ways. The model having a mixed fund, with mixed shareholder and mixed team, is turned out to be the most effective model. To have, money which is both Chinese and European, so the interest was always aligned. Whether it was a European or Chinese company, the shareholders were always aligned to help the company, whether it was in Europe and China, and the team was always aligned. Even though I really had to hammer a little bit to keep the team aligned, let me tell you, but I did my best. I mean, I was CC'd in all the emails, and I made sure that everybody was on the same line. Let me see what this says. No, these are. No, these are really fun. Okay, finished. Now ask me all the questions you want to amend. But these are like too simple. Company A, to company B. I'm not going to get to it. Can't do that. These are like my colleague used the presentation to give to when they go to Bologna.
This is for Bologna.
Yeah, this is for Bologna. You ask me the question. I prefer to ask you a question. Company A did, company B. Come on, please. I'm just too old for that. Sorry to do this. It's okay. I did my best. This is the first time in my life ever, in years and years, that I use a presentation, a visual presentation. It hasn't happened. Go on my YouTube channel and tell me where you see me using a presentation. Okay, I speak with my hands, and then I have to give it, and then I just like, I did my best, finished. Let's go back. I have my menu here, I can touch on different things. I'm an artist. I'm not a private equity guy, I'm an artist. Anything you need to understand better? Joanne? Joanne, anything you need to understand?
I'm good.
Eh?
I'm good.
Any question about private equity?
Not right now.
Eh?
How do you find the private equity market in China in terms of the legal restrictions?
But the private equity market in China, this is... Now, I can tell the story. This is a very interesting story. So, up until 2009, the private equity market did not exist in China. So the only private equity funds that did China were like foreign funds. It was primarily 80–90% US money that set up Cayman-based funds to operate in China. So there was really, private equity was carried out as a foreign-based investment. Okay? And then the Chinese felt that private equity was a useful instrument, useful financial instrument to bridge the need of the company from early growth to the full capital market. And they passed the private equity law. All of a sudden, a huge amount of liquidity went into private equity. Why? Because China has an absurd anomaly, which is it has a saving rate which is 50% of GDP. Like the saving rate in Italy is probably 23%, the saving rate in Japan is probably whatever. In China it's 50%. So that means that there's a lot of money available there for investment. That does not mean that it's all household savings, because savings can be household savings, corporate savings, or public savings. Okay? Now, in China, in reality, when you see 50% saving on GDP, it is mostly corporate savings. That is, that they get translated into retained earnings. Company making money and not paying dividends. Okay? Because household savings are important, but not offline. Okay? This is why I told you before, this whole thing about social welfare that people don't spend because of that. It's true, but it's not the Chinese family save that much. Okay? But the anomaly of the Chinese financial system make it that in order to control a financial system, when I say they control a financial system, what does it really mean? It means that you have to control the flow, you have to control the money in and out, you have to control the interest rates, and you have to control the foreign exchange. Before I said, the system will control the financial system. What does it mean? That foreign exchange conversion, interest rate, and capital flows were controlled. If you want to bring money into China, you have to be authorized. If you want to bring money out of China, you have to be authorized. The rate you get on your financial investment, on your bank, is set by the state. It's 2%. There's no competition. The rate you pay on your loan is set. Obviously, foreign exchange was set, the renminbi was back to the US dollar. You remember the whole big argument about the renminbi being devalued. Okay? Now, the anomaly of the system is that the rate paid to depositor, to savers like us, was negative that is, was always lower than inflation. So people had no way to put the money into financial investments. Okay, I mean, bonds and deposit and liquidity didn't earn any money. So people put the money into real estate because people were hoping, people want to save for retirement. So that's why you have a real estate bubble. And then all of a sudden, this new instrument was available, like to put the money into private equity. So what was nothing in one day become, like in a few months, become a gigantic market with all the money flowing in, which on its turn flowed into the stock market, and that created a huge bubble. And with it, with this huge infusion of money, chasing for return, because this money cannot go out. You see what I mean? It's like having too many fishes in a pond. Okay? Just like they can't. Just like they crave for oxygen, they crave for food, they crave for everything. This huge wave of return originated 3,000 private equity funds. So China went from nothing to 3,000 private equity funds. You remember when I said that China was doomed to create overcapacity, whatever they did? Did I say that? Did I say that China create overcapacity, whatever they do? I didn't say that? Okay, this is a big concept I missed. But China having such a large saving block is doomed, and having a politically controlled financial system is sort of doomed of not allocating money wisely. So the doom of China is that you have bubbles and you have overcapacity. Now what happens when you have a closed financial system, politically dominated, that doesn't let money in and out? So all of a sudden you have 3,000 private equity teams out there, and they started competing with each other. And so on every single target, it was about 20 teams competing, and the prices went through the roof. That is, in order to make an investment, it wasn't like us that we were a cross-border model, a foreign fund, on a more looking for arbitrage opportunity to assign in Europe. All these people were into the market, trying to put money into company to then list them, because the stock market was going through a bubble. It was a whole big bubble. So they start buying this company at multiple of 30, 40, and so on, and the company went public at 60, 70. Okay, so the market seemed crazy. And that went along for some time until the stock market collapsed. Because well, a few things happened, but the China stock market is the worst performing stock market of the last 5 years. In spite of China being the best economy of the last 5 years, the stock market is the worst stock market of the last 5 years. Why is that? Number of reasons. One is, yes, the growth is great, but too much investment creates too much overcapacity that depresses margins. So you have a lot of growth, but not enough profits. One. Second, there's a lot of speculative, volatile capital. Third, the sole big game of putting money into a company and then taking the company public with so much state influence in it, because to go public you need to have the permission by the Chinese sect called China Security Regulatory Commission. So you need to have one sheet with CSRC when you have this many thousand people moving in. So politics started moving into the big family, into the game of who was going to get listed. Because getting listed meant making a fortune. Okay? When you start getting listed with P of 60, 70, consider the average P in the world is about 15 or 16. Can you imagine what it is? So basically they rigged the market. And savers realized the market was rigged. There was a big bubble. The market exploded. Morale, up until 2 years ago, you used to have 400 IPOs in China every year. This year, up to now, 0. And the market is down 70% from its peak, when every other market in the world is booming. Okay, so, in that, really, a lot of people who put money into private equity invested the money in companies that now have no exit. So they're stuck there. And since these are minority positions, nobody wants to buy a minority position. Also because, it's an interesting game, Chinese are primarily buyers. It's a very young entrepreneurial society and they want to grow, they want to buy. So the entrepreneur, only with such a rich stock market that says, I only need to sell 20-30% to go to the market, then I become a millionaire. There's no need for me to sell control in my company. So they're all minority position. But then with the minority position, either you go public or you do squat with it. In China, you don't control a company, not even if you're majority. If you're not an entrepreneur, you don't control the company until if you're a majority in reality. But being a minority is really sad. So now the private equity market is made up of a lot of companies, a lot of private equity firms. They are stuck in minority position in companies that cannot go public. So this is a very sad disaster, which is one of the many distortions created by a politically controlled financial system. This is, I can talk for 2 days about the Chinese private equity market, but I don't think that should be the subject of these 2 days, right? Is that, John, you want me to say more?
If they are interested,
I know, yeah, just go ahead. You know, I can talk you about even leftover ladies. You know who the leftover ladies are? Eh? Then, in China there is a big pressure that you have to get married by the time of 26. It's a huge family pressure. So if you don't get married when you're 26, then you're not likely to get married. And then if you pass 30, it's finished, so they're called leftover babies. This is a very interesting social phenomenon. I'll take more. No problem with leftover babies. I like it. That is huge because the parents have, there's a big family and they have only one kid and they want grandchildren, Anyway, let's go back to PE. Is there anything you want to know about, how we were able to stay out of this disaster was very simple. I was old, I'd gone through many bubbles. I've seen the 87 bubbles. 87 bubble, I was already around. I was around for the internet bubble. I was in Asia with the Asia bubbles, and I sort of have an idea what bubbles are. When people start screwing around with fundamentals and come up with story to say evaluation are really different. No, the way to evaluate is really like this, not like this. No. The things are still like as they set up in the early, the 20 and 30, math of Modigliani, that kind of stuff. The numbers are numbers. The numbers are numbers. And when numbers don't match up, I don't believe the story. And then when everybody start I mean, I can see the symptoms. When the numbers don't match up and people make up different evaluation models trying to explain that things are different, when everybody's doing the same thing, and just like I start being contrarian. Because everybody's obsessed about the whole thing. When you see the mob behavior, then I start being, I just start playing contrarian. And I've seen this move many times. Like in 97, 90, oh yeah, everybody like this, oh, you're fantastic, so then, boom, bingo. During the internet, the same, company were going public, and then even disappeared, most of the companies went public. So I could see the bubble coming. I just saw that all the level of connection, it was all about connection. I know this, I know that. I can go to IPO because I can go to CSRC first and this and that. I could see all that, and I said, we ain't gonna play that game. I'm not gonna play it. We have this neat game here doing cross-border. This is real stuff. These are real products. These are real margins. And I stick to that. And we didn't get off on this pre-IPO stuff. And also because most of that stuff was junk, would not stand the scrutiny of an international fund, really. I mean, for our criteria, there was a lot of things that were supposed to happen that were written and just spoken. And that doesn't work with the Luxembourg fund, where you have like international LPs, shareholders. You can't just say, oh, actually I talked to Billy Bob and promised that he's going to give us back 10 million, but that cannot be written because people cannot see that. It ain't going to work. Everything has to be written, everything has to be recorded, too much of that. So we stayed out, and that was, I'll say about ass. I don't know, maybe I cut it too short, but did I cut it too short? You want me?
I have the curiosity.
Yeah, even more. Yes, Vanessa.
Okay, I have a question. Since environmental issues in China are a very big concern right now, how good are the investments from Italy to China in these 2 years, for example? How is it improving? In environmental, in green energy?
No. Listen. China does not need money from anywhere for green energy. As I told you, Vanessa, they have way too much money. China is by far the world largest producer of solar panels, as by far the world largest producer of wind turbine, is the world largest producer of wind energy, and I'm not sure, but it's getting to be the largest producer of solar energy. There is no shit of like any investment, any money to be made in renewables in China. Because there is so much competition and the margins are so thin in that market, I'm not going to touch it with 10 feet pole. It's the opposite.
Yes,
it is them going around the world and investing in green energy because they need to sell those damn millions of solar panels and wind turbines they produce that they cannot install in China. You know, and they throw the money away to finance renewables all over the world. It's the other way around. Because China does have a big problem that renewable energy renewable energy is never competitive to get vis-a-vis fossil energy. But to be reasonably, it has to be produced near to where you consume it. Okay? The fact is that one problem with China is that it does have 25% of the world population and 70% of the world arable land, and the two of them overlap. That is, most of the population is concentrated around the arable land. So there is a big, 95% of the population is in 10% of China. And the rest of China is either desert or the Tibet, how do you say Albertiano? The Tibet plateau. So you cannot put solar panels near Shanghai. Because near Shanghai is so damn crowded that the land is so expensive to build factory and to build apartment. There's no way. And also it's so polluted the sun doesn't even get there. So you need to put the panels in the Gobi Desert. But the Gobi Desert is about 3,000 miles away. And to transport energy is very expensive. So if you have to build 3,000 high voltage lines to go from the Gobi Desert to Shanghai or Beijing, forget it. That thing is going to become so damn expensive you can't imagine. Okay? And the same is about wind. That, you know, where they have the farming is where they have the industry and where they live. It's all intermingled. Then there is a large part of China that are totally inhabited. Now you can put all the wind and solar you want, but it's way away. And it becomes so damn expensive to carry all the energy. You know, all these lines, they're going to go wasted for 1,000 of miles, and nobody's going to need their power until the very end. It's not that people can hook up in the middle. This is, so, get it. I mean, it's not, I mean, renewable, to me, is a no-no. Is a no, and the Chinese are even able to lose money when they go outside. That's to answer your question.
You said you were around for a lot of bubbles. I'm wondering if you can spend some word on the real estate bubble that is supposed to be in China right now, and when it's going to pop, if it's going to pop.
And it's the same damn problem. Now, bond, no return. Money market, no return. Money offshore, only the few privileged can, and then we can't. The stock market is a dog. I mean, nobody trusts the stock market anymore. So this is why the stock market is so low. People don't. So they are, where the fuck do you put your money? Bricks. You're too young, but that was in Italy in the 70s. There was double-digit inflation, and interest rates were negative, and everybody was building houses. I remember my mother and my father. I soldi non valgono più niente. Money becomes worthless. You know, the only thing that will value so now. So the only thing is houses. And now people, it's not that the people buy their own houses. They buy 3, 4, 5 different houses. That's where they put their savings. The problem is that nobody's ever going to fill those houses. You know, those houses sit empty. But since there is this thing that everybody is trying to put this big saving in housing, the value keeps going up. So they think that they're making a lot of money. Out there are 70 million empty houses, and when there is a bubble, the prices keep going up. So everybody's really convinced they're making good money in buying all these apartments. But at some point, the thing is going to pop. And this is what concerns the government knows it very well. That's why they try to control this and try to control and try to put screws. But you know, the system is not open. It's not market-based. if you don't pay a real return to people to leave the money in the bank, this is what's happening. These are all like byproduct of the distorted, non-market-based financial system. All it would take would be to pay the depositor a positive interest rate. Why don't they do it? Because the banks have to have a big margin, set margin, to cover all the bad loans they make to state-owned enterprises. The local government can have return the money. You understand? This goes back to my original point, to the aberration of the financial system.
Do you think the fear of the bubbling pop will lead the government to open a little bit the market? I mean, what is worse?
Yeah, yes, they are cautiously now, they allow banks to pay a little bit more on deposit. No, okay. Let me tell you what the fact is. Liberalize the market means let money go in and out, let markets set the foreign exchange, and let competition set the interest rate. But if the market, if the financial system is controlled by the market, the parties don't more power. So freeing the market means shooting yourself in the foot. So they don't like to fix the problem by freeing the market. They try to fix the problem with administrative measures. That is, by putting taxes on transactions, by not giving mortgages to people to buy the second home, by, they try to limit, they know that it's a real estate bubble brewing, but they try to control it by penalizing people and trying to limit their purchase of a home. You cannot buy a home if you don't have an OKU. You can only buy homes where you have hukou. So in theory, you cannot, if you're Shanghainese, you cannot buy a house in Chengdu. But then you have a market of fake hukous. So they discovered the lady and 7 different hukous. So I mean, Chinese are like Napolitans, just make the rule, and then the day after they devise a way around the rule. They're very creative. Okay, so yes, the solution, if you want to stop the bubble, pay people an interest rate. Yes, if you open up competition for interest rate, the banks stop making money, and then if they make less money, they can absorb all the bad debt, and they can roll over all those debt that cannot be paid, and then you have a financial crisis. It ain't gonna be easy. Once you get the system not going right, it ain't easy just like to fix it by saying, you know what? Also there's a power issue.
I'm wondering if the financial market can have an influence on the power issue. Because on the other hand, if the system is not working, at one point you have social instability and
Listen, at some point, the fact is, in theory, we should go very fast in liberalizing the market. How many times have you read that the market is going to be liberalized? I'm not around. I read this in 2005. How much has it been liberalized? Nothing. How many times have we read that Shanghai was going to be the financial capital of the world by the year 2020? Do you think it has made any progress? Zilch. There's nothing. There's no financial capital of anything in Shanghai. I mean, it's very hard for them to do it. Because it's very hard for them to relinquish power, and it's very hard to change things and to keep power away and to make things in a different way. So So I think at some point you're going to have the problem and you're going to have to react to the problem. A little bit they're doing, I mean, they're creating the offshore renminbi market, but I would like to leave this discussion to tomorrow and maybe concert. Because now there's a market for the offshore renminbi developing. But if I start this at 5:15, it's just like, I don't know, either you're a genius or you're not following me. Because I have trouble understanding what I'm saying. But yes, they're trying to do, the people Bank of China is trying to create an offshore market for renminbi. They're going to put pressure on the domestic market and forcing the opening of the domestic market. They are not going fast enough, but they're trying to do something. Okay? There is an offshore renminbi market now that has a liberalized interest rate and this market, when it gets bigger, will force also the domestic market, because you cannot have a closed renminbi market at home and an offshore renminbi market. And Chinese need an offshore renminbi market, because if there is a dry up in liquidity again, they can't afford for global trade to go down. They need to sell. That's why they're setting up all the swap lines. You see they're setting up the swap lines, because they want to make sure there's liquidity around the renminbi. That's why they encourage the issuance of dim sum bonds. The bonds in renminbi offshore in Hong Kong and so on. And then, what happened? So a company issued these renminbi bonds, and then they will let people bring them back to China. So people had like 100 million euro worth of renminbi. What do you do with renminbi in Milan? Fucking engine, nobody wants it. I mean, would you sell your home to anybody paying you renminbi? Would you? No. I mean, the only place in the world where they can use renminbi is in China, and now they don't let you bring it back. So eventually people start yelling and screaming, so they have to break barriers, so people are allowed to bring the renminbi back. And now there's an offshore market. So the People Bank of China is trying to create an international market for the renminbi that China needs badly, that is going to put pressure on the internal financial market. And the internal financial market will be forced to evolve. But it's going to be a fairly slow process. In the middle, yeah, I think we're going to see a crisis. I mean, I'm not a bull, but there are China bulls and China bears. The world is divided and I just choose school. I'm not a China bear in the sense I don't think China is going to blow up. But I think it's going to keep going, but it's going to be bumpy. So you're going to see some bumps. We're going to have some fun along the way. Okay? And I'm going to be there enjoying the bump. Okay? That's what I think. No, the offshore renminbi market we save for tomorrow. Yeah. Why the Chinese want the renminbi to become an international currency, and why they don't want it to become a reserve currency. It's a big difference. Remind me to tell you this tomorrow. Because this is a jewel. Very few people can tell you the story.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Going back to monetary strategy. If you could tell us what is the most important thing you look at the company you want to invest in order to understand if it's good for China or not. What is the most important thing you look at?
Now, okay. This is case by case, because Chinese are strange, because there are some, in some things, because whatever is made in the West, to make money in China, you've got to have the Chinese willing to pay premium, okay? Because whatever is comes from the West, even though it's produced in China, it costs more, and the Chinese have to be willing to pay premium. So in some cases, they're willing to pay premium. In some other cases, absolutely not willing to pay premium. Okay? And that changes by machinery, by stuff, it's very difficult to say. In general, the common denominator, though, that cuts across our investments, is all our investments are riddled with certification and authorization. Because certification and authorization are barriers that limit the trend of overcapacity in the industry. For example, if you're pharmaceutical, it's difficult to create overcapacity in pharmaceutical because pharmas have to be authorized. And they have to have international authorization, so it ain't that easy. You can create overcapacity in bicycles. You can create overcapacity in making furniture, but pharma stuff, very complicated. It has to be authorized. Oil and gas stuff, the purchaser, the gas company wants stuff that is certified. They're not going to buy equipment from anybody because that stuff has to hold, has to be resistant, has to be guaranteed. So everything that cut across all our sector has to do with certification and authorizations. Even like specialty chemical, yes, specialty chemicals is a great business to be in China. You know why? Because Chinese are becoming tremendously environmental conscious. They don't want an incinerator. They go out in the street, nobody wants a chemical, they want to see like the chemical plant nearby. You have demonstration every time, people in the street, they don't want chemical plant, they don't want waste to energy plant, they want nothing. So to be able to make a chemical plant in China is so damn difficult now. Because the Chinese only want like R&D centers, they want like super high-tech stuff, software stuff, they want clean stuff, okay? Because the environment is too much. So to be able to make a chemical stuff is so difficult to have authorization. So in the future, we only deal with things that are very difficult to certify and very difficult to authorize. Because then after all, we have an edge. Because in the end, you know, when things get difficult, Chinese don't trust Chinese. Now you can see all over the world that there's a big thing about exporting milk powder to China. There is not a single Chinese mother that gives his daughter, her daughter or son, Chinese-made milk powder. Everybody, they're going all over the world. They empty the shelves in London. You know, there are like, there are jail penalties for people importing milk powder into China now. Because they're becoming so product safety conscious. They're like unimaginable. So now all machine that makes food and pharma, they have to be all certified. And all that you can make money. Because no Chinese, we had the Chinese who copied one of our pharma machinery. It was a very complicated pharma machinery. They made a plant. It was a very elaborate scheme because they made a phantom company through the employee, and that was the sub-supply, so they could not be accused of cloning our product. We had the long fight. There was no way to stop the factory, and they started making this factory. They made freeze dryer. Freeze dryer is a very complicated product that turns powder into liquid, used in pharmaceutical processes. You know what happened? They didn't sell a single machine because the market knew that they copied the product, didn't have the technical background, and nobody wanted to risk her or his tank in buying a machine that could endanger people's life. Because on safety issues, Chinese are becoming like crazy. You don't want to be managing director of a company that hurts people in China. You really don't want to do that. You don't want to be Comandante Schettino. If Comandante Schettino were born Chinese, no, you would not be releasing interview. Trust me. Trust me.
We need to explain who is Comandante Schettino.
You know, Comandante Schettino is the chief captain of that ship that turned over in the Giglio Island. If Comandante Schettino was Chinese, you'd be gone minute one. And by now, we wouldn't even know if he's dead or alive. Forget about him. Now he's releasing interviews. And he's saying on TV, my conscience is clean. The asshole. You asshole. I mean, he killed 30 people, and the ship is still there. It was a disgrace. If he was Chinese, what would they even know? Not to be discussed. It wouldn't be an argument, a subject of discussion. Understand? So you really don't want. So this is we are really leaving the high note, and I've been able to keep you interested.
Absolutely.
Eh? Okay. Giorgio. Any more questions? Or we close here for today? Thank you.